So I wanted to do a quick video here talking about something that I think a lot of us as eBay sellers have experience with and oftentimes a very hard time dealing with. And that something is negative feedback. So I figured I'd dedicate a quick little video here talking about it because I've had some experiences, especially more recently, dealing with it. And I just sort of want to talk about how you can deal with negative feedback and how you can actually possibly get it removed from your page, or how you can at least avoid it in the first place, and also get rid of it if you do get it for an unreasonable reason. Now, if you've been on any of my eBay pages, you will notice one interesting thing, and that's that my feedback, generally speaking, is pretty darn good. I do get negative feedback, like every other eBay seller out there. It's something that you can't avoid, and going into the business, you had to know that you're not going to live with a perfect feedback rating, no matter how good you are at selling things on eBay, no matter how accurate you are at getting things out on time to the post office, and how meticulous you are in packing everything and testing everything. You're going to end up getting it, and it might not even be your fault. But today I want to talk about some of the things that you can do when you do get that negative feedback that really wasn't your fault, and some things that you can do to avoid it. A lot of what I'm going to say in today's video can apply to things such as eBay cases that are open against you, as well as just dealing with buyers in general and getting eBay involved. But I think I'm going to save that for its own video because there's plenty of different individual cases that we could break down separately that definitely need their own time. But let's talk negative feedback specifically. So you're going along, normal day on eBay, whatever it is, and let's just say that for whatever reason you get a piece of negative feedback. Most people's first instinct is to freak out, and then they get angry at eBay, and they may even, lose it at the buyer or whatever, and that's just not a good place to start. So here's something interesting that you might not know. First of all, before you get in contact with eBay or anything, buyers can change negative feedback. And so what I would recommend doing if you got negative feedback is actually reaching out to the buyer first to see if you could work it away with them to possibly convince them to change their feedback. Now again, you can get negative feedback for many reasons. In some cases, it's because your shipping took too long. And in that case, it's out of your control. But oftentimes, if it's true, then eBay is not going to be able to help you. But you might be able to explain your situation to your buyer, and they might be able to help you, especially if you're a small business or operating as one, and you can convince them. And if they have a bit of a heart, you might be able to get them to change their mind about that, even by offering them some sort of discount. Another common reason that people get negative feedback is for items not being as described. And again, it's usually you get those negative feedback strikes when you don't help the buyer. And oftentimes you are in the wrong for that. But that doesn't mean that you can't still try to make it right after you get that negative feedback. So again, reaching out to that buyer in that case and seeing if there's anything that you can do to change their mind and make this case right is a great place to start. Another common one is poor communication skills, or if you're late on your messaging or whatever that might be, late on the shipment. That's another great reason for a negative feedback. And again, I'm going to say it, you can go ahead and you can ask your buyer to convince them and try to change their mind. Now again, some of these are more tough than others. Obviously, again, things are late in shipment, that's out of your control. If you forgot to ship an item and things are 4 days out when it was supposed to be a 2-day handling policy, well, that's your problem. And unfortunately, most of those times, if you're not convincing the buyer, eBay is not going to side with you. Basically, what you should know before calling eBay is that anything with concrete evidence that you messed up and you got negative feedback for it, eBay is not going to remove that, and you shouldn't even bother wasting your time trying to get it removed. For example, you forgot to ship an item out, 2 days late, whatever it might be. They're not going to remove the negative feedback for that. You messed up. Or let's say that you just did a really poor job communicating with your buyer. Maybe they asked you for some help and you missed out on the mark by a few days and, gave them some late messages, or failed to, help with the case. Those are all great reasons that you probably should get negative feedback. And as sellers, we need to realize the fact that regardless of if we're busy or trying to do other things or have a million things going on at once in our life, we still are responsible to our buyers for making sure that they have a good experience when shopping on our eBay stores. And for that reason, we do sort of deserve the negative feedback if we did actually mess up. But now let's talk about when you didn't mess up. So again, this can be a ton of different things, but buyers leave negative feedback for some of the most ridiculous reasons sometimes. And oftentimes these are things that you can get eBay to take away. Now here's an interesting start. Okay, let's start here because this one's really interesting. If a buyer ever threatens you to give you negative feedback if you don't, for example, give them a discount, or for any other reason, they use it as almost a form of blackmail, saying, I will give you negative feedback if you don't do something. That is right away violating eBay's policy, and they will always side with you in that case. So if you end up getting negative feedback for that, or even before they leave negative feedback, you can call eBay about that. They're exploiting eBay's system, and eBay will either remove that buyer or they'll deal with it in favor of you. So be aware of that, because I know that does happen quite a bit. By the way, in all these cases I'm about to mention, you likely want to call eBay and actually explain to them. Don't do the chat or anything. You actually want to get on the phone. And we'll talk about some phone skills when you're on with them later. Anyway, another case I got recently was a buyer left some negative feedback because I didn't provide shipping to the USA. This was on an item that I actually did have shipping to the USA turned on for, so I'm not sure where the buyer got that idea from. But also I did end up canceling this order at the buyer's request, and it was only after that, and the buyer didn't even bring up the fact that it said that it didn't ship to the USA. It was only after that they left that feedback. I ended up just calling eBay straight up, and I said, I got a negative feedback here because the buyer said that I didn't ship to the USA, when clearly in my listing it says that, and also that doesn't really seem like a valid reason to leave negative feedback, as it doesn't really have anything to do with me. Sure enough, eBay sided with me, and within minutes I had that piece of feedback removed. So there's that negative feedback the buyers will leave that completely contradict what your listing said. Maybe it's an item not described case, and they're saying that, buyer didn't mention the size of the clothing was this or whatever, when clearly in your listing you did. Well, you can call eBay up and say, eBay, hello, look at my listing and look at what they said, and you can obviously see that I did actually mention that. Then of course there's another level of crazy out there, which is just the buyers want to get back at you for whatever reason. Again, oftentimes this might be because you had a slightly delayed response, but really it wasn't enough, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe, it was like a day or a few hours after your handling policy and you shipped out an item, or maybe you replied to a message within 48 hours instead of, 12 as the buyer would have wanted. Well, again, that's not really a valid reason for them to leave negative feedback, and they're oftentimes just upset about it for whatever reason, but ultimately that shouldn't leave negative feedback on your page. So oftentimes if you can call eBay and mention that that's what happened, they will actually side with you and remove that negative feedback. So now we know about the different types of negative feedback that you may see on your page, and there may be other ones out there as well that I missed, and if you have any that you'd like me to sort of give my opinion on, be sure to leave those down below in the comments. But now I quickly want to talk about when you get on the phone with eBay, because this is actually one of the most crucial parts in getting your negative feedback removed. First of all, you want to go in there with a really good and professional attitude. If you run into the phone call screaming at the person on the other end of the phone, first of all, let's make it clear it's not their fault, so there's really no reason to get mad at them through the entire call. But if you run in there guns blazing and you're just going at it and giving it to them, they are not going to want to help you whatsoever, and you shouldn't expect them to. That's ridiculous. It's not their fault. They are just working for eBay, trying to solve your problem, and you're losing it. So what I would recommend in that case is, if you do get some negative feedback, I would take a few minutes to cool down before you just go and immediately call them and freak out. I would actually maybe even take a couple hours and figure out an attack plan, a game plan, figure out how you want to approach it to leave you with the best result. Because the last thing that anyone wants is somebody yelling at them, and you'll learn this in customer service as well, I believe. If you have a customer that's totally losing it at you, it's the least of your interest to try to help them. So the classic be kind and respectful is number one, and that's going to be really important on these calls. Two, you want to explain all the facts, but also have some things that can back up your facts. Being able to say, look at my message history, or check the description of my listing, or being able to point out something in a photograph to the person on the other end of the phone might allow them to better make a decision in favor of you. For example, if you just said, I don't believe the buyer was right in this listing, I did mention the sizes, but you didn't really specify where, or what you may have done to specify those sizes, well, then the person on the other end of the phone, the person working for eBay, might not be able to help you. They might not realize that. They might miss over it. I'm just saying to provide all of the evidence up front, so then, the eBay clerk or the eBay person on the other end of the phone, has everything in front of them, and they can make a decision based on that and not just based on whatever they can find randomly. And then number three here, this one has less about what you can say and more about sort of your history with eBay, but oftentimes I do find if you have more experience as a seller on eBay, more feedback, or a longer lasting account, let's say you have an account from 2005 versus an account from 2015, they're likely going to side with the accounts that are older and that have built up feedback over many years and have many years of doing business with eBay and many years of successful sales and feedback. That's why I think it is important to start to establish yourself. And even if you're a more recent seller, you just joined the platform and you joined, let's say, in 2018, well, I would still, if I was working on the side of the phone, still probably listen to the person that joined in 2018 with, let's say, 200 pieces of positive feedback against the person that joined in 2021 that has no feedback, that's making this negative feedback claim. So with all that in mind, I think, again, it's just important, and most important, to stay cool on the phone. Do not lose your temper, because that is just going to make things worse. And overall, again, just provide all that evidence and see if you can work through it based on your experience as a seller, but also providing them with all the information that they need to make the best decision for eBay as a platform. You should realize that you're not going to win every single negative feedback claim, and also that you probably don't deserve to win every single negative feedback claim, and that's just something that you had to live with as an eBay seller. We all make mistakes, and oftentimes, unfortunately, we do have to pay for them, but that's why I do believe that the first step should always be reaching out to the buyer and seeing if you can talk to them and explaining the situation or offering them some sort of discount or whatever it might be that might win them back over to the positive side. I think that's going to make the most difference. But again, in an event where you have a crazy piece of negative feedback, I don't think that calling eBay is a bad idea, and I call eBay probably like maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that. I call them a lot, so I'm not afraid to get on the phone with them, and you shouldn't either. Okay, we're gonna wrap things up there, guys. Hopefully you guys found some value in this video and can maybe get 1 or 2 pieces of negative feedback removed to your page that you really didn't think you deserved in the first place, or at least try to put up a fight for them. I know, it's more important to get to them the sooner, the better, but still, if you can, maybe even just win 1 piece of negative feedback out of this, that would be awesome. Leave your comments down below, again, with any pieces of negative feedback that you've received, maybe some crazy buyer claims or whatever it might be, whatever you're dealing with right now. I'm always interested to hear, what's going around the community and hearing how different people are solving different problems. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will see you guys all in the next video.